Napoleon Dynamite is such an interesting film. It's a 90-minute micro-budget indie comedy with a cast of complete unknowns that has very little to no plot. Yet, it still found a way to cement itself as one of the most influential comedies of the last 20 years and is a genre-defying film. By all accounts, this film should have never been such a hit, but it defied all odds and is still relevant today. It's beloved by millions of fans across all ages and walks of life. But why? Why is this film so beloved? Well, I have a few theories that I would like to share with you in this video.
Hey, check that out.
A key component that makes this film work is that it's authentic. As stated before, Napoleon Dynamite is a micro-budget indie film. It was made for just about $400,000 and was shot in the span of 23 days in the small town of Preston, Idaho. Just like the characters in this film, the filmmakers are the underdogs, and we want to root for them and see this film succeed. There's also tons of anecdotes from the making of this film where people in the town of Preston donated and contributed to the filmmakers in order to make this movie a reality. If you want to learn more about the behind the scenes of this film and hear some of the interesting stories, I definitely recommend checking out Scotty Dunn's video on this movie, The Making of an Indie Blockbuster. The fact that this film is allowed to be weird is why I think it clicked with audiences so well. It's quirky and goofy and does so honestly and authentically. Director Jared Hess stated that he crafted Napoleon from combining all the geekiest personality traits from his siblings and himself into one character. The film isn't punching down on these geeky archetypes that are present in our main characters. Yes, they are being poked fun at, but it's not done with ill content or malice. Take the end of the film, for example, when we see our characters' wildest dreams come true. We laugh at these characters' misadventures, but at the end of the day, they are the heroes of the story and we love to see them succeed. I think one of the most important aspects of Napoleon Dynamite is that this is not a film made by the Hollywood system. You don't get the sense that there was a studio breathing down the filmmakers' necks, doubting every creative decision that they made. It feels like we are getting the raw, untouched movie that the filmmakers wanted us to see. You can definitely feel the low budget quality of the film, but that adds to the charm and makes it different from the big budget comedies that studios were pumping out at the same time. And even though the film had a little studio interference in reshoots, once it was picked up by Fox Searchlight Pictures, the changes that were made didn't interfere with the film's voice or vision. And in many cases, the film was enhanced, such as the title sequence in the beginning that was added for the wide release. Additionally, since this film was made outside of Hollywood, all the actors we see on screen are pretty much unknown. In other movies, when we watch big actors play roles, there's that little part in your brain that tells you that this is an actor and is not really this character. However, when we watch something where we don't recognize any of the actors, we only see the characters. And when it's iconic roles, like in this movie, we have the opposite effect happening, where you can only see these characters. Like if you watch John Heater in any other movie, you'll subconsciously say, oh hey, that's Napoleon Dynamite. The actors are able to disappear into these roles since the audience doesn't have any preconceived notions about who they are yet. That's why the characters in this film feel so real and like people you probably met in real life. You might not know someone exactly like Napoleon, but you may know someone that has similar attributes or personality traits. Someone who is not afraid to be themselves, which is a very honorable trait to have. And leads into my next point.
I see you're drinking 1%. Is that because you think you're fat? Because you're not. You could be drinking whole if you wanted to.
A big factor that makes this movie so endearing is, of course, the main character, Napoleon. Napoleon is authentically himself. He's an outcast and he's an underdog, which means we want to see him succeed. Audiences naturally want to root for the underdog because we've all experienced being an outcast before in some form in our lives. And the same goes for all the main characters in this film. Even Uncle Rico deserves to find happiness in the end. Well, maybe. I don't know. The stakes in this film are not very high, but they work for the setting. We are in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, where nothing is going on, so that means the problems our characters run into feel big in the scope of the world that they are in. The setting of this movie is also something that makes this film so beloved. I think this movie has one of the best portrayals of small-town America that we've ever seen on screen. What makes this portrayal so realistic is that Hess created the plot through anecdotes from his personal life. just like he did when creating the title character. For example, the scene where the farmer shoots the cow in front of the school bus full of kids actually happened to director Jared Hess. Each scene and vignette in the movie perfectly captures this setting. The roller skate rides to the local gym, the get-rich-quick schemes, and the breaking of federal labor laws are very much niche aspects of small-town life that are put on display and I'm sure are very relatable to much of the audience. One aspect of small-town life that this film perfectly imitated is the fashion, technology, and media. This film takes place in 2004 and 2005, but we see a lot of elements in this town that are commonly attributed to the 80s and 90s. This captures a feeling that you see a lot in rural towns in America, where oftentimes the people in the town are 10 or 20 years behind on current fads and trends. The fact that this movie is also shot on real film helps this vintage aesthetic. The setting is so well captured through the cinematography done by Mun Powell. Napoleon Dynamite features tons of shots that highlight the empty space of the landscape. We get these wide shots of just a van in an open field, or we get Napoleon walking down an empty dirt road. The blocking is also a crucial part of selling this idea of emptiness within the frame. There's plenty of shots where our subjects are placed in the foreground with empty space above their heads to show off the landscape, like this iconic scene at the chicken farm. This awkward staging also adds to the comedy of the scene and is very reminiscent of the blocking you see in a lot of Wes Anderson films.
Trying to earn money for college.
Your mom goes to college.
One of the biggest factors to this film's endearing success is that it's so accessible. It's so easy to watch no matter what the circumstances are. It is a breezy 96 minutes long, which makes it very light and fast to watch. There's not as big as a commitment that you get with longer movies. Both Jared Hess and Jon Heder graduated from Brigham Young University, which, if you didn't know, is a private university sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mormons obviously don't like cursing, so that's why there's not a single use of profanity in this movie. This movie is rated PG, so pretty much anyone of any age can watch. This movie was designed to be watched by everyone, as the comedy doesn't require the audience to be of a certain age to enjoy it. Granted, older people are going to understand more of the jokes because they've experienced the type of thing that the film is satirizing, such as the peaked in high school Uncle Rico. But there's still plenty of comedy that kids are going to get in this movie, like Napoleon saying funny words and acting like a goofball. The type of goofy, awkward comedy that you see in this film is just so universal, which broadens the appeal of this movie to a much wider audience than other comedy films. Oftentimes, one of the biggest criticisms of this movie is the lack of a plot, but I think that is one of the strengths of this movie and why it's had the staying power it has. Just like with the runtime, because the plot is very bare bones, there's not much of a commitment as a viewer. You don't have to lock in order to enjoy this movie. Whether you're drunk, stoned, sleep deprived, doing chores around the house, or on your phone, you can enjoy this movie. If the movie is playing on the TV, you can just hop in at any point and enjoy it. This is the perfect movie to throw on in the background of a party. The lack of a plot also helps us focus on the characters, which is really the main draw of this film. People don't watch this movie for the plot. They watch it for Napoleon, and Pedro, and Kip, and Uncle Rico, and Rex Kwon Do. Lastly, the staying power of this film can also be attributed to the DVD sales. This film came out in 2004, with the DVD and VHS release in the same year. The 2000s was the best time for DVD sales, as it was right after VHS went out of fashion and just before streaming became the new biggest thing. Napoleon Dynamite was a huge seller in the physical media market, making over $139 million on just DVD sales. So many people had a physical copy of this movie in their household that they could rewatch at their leisure, which means this film stayed in the cultural zeitgeist for a long, long time.
I caught you a delicious bass.
Napoleon Dynamite has been loved by fans because it is not afraid to be authentic and honest. It's a movie with a small budget but big talent that was able to capture the hearts of many viewers across all demographics. It perfectly captures the characters and settings of this world and has remained relevant even 20 years after its release. You still see people quoting it, dressing up as these characters on Halloween, and analyzing the movie in video essays on YouTube. I mean, I love this movie, and if you clicked on this video, I'm guessing you probably love this movie too. So, those are my thoughts on why this movie is so beloved. Is there anything I missed? Or do you have your own theories on this film's success? I'd love to hear them in the comments below. This has been Tom from Isenhart Productions, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.